So imagine you're staring at this massive bank vault,
A massive bank vault? Right, you have my attention.
and it's holding roughly $55 billion or 4.57 lakh crores rupees. It's fully funded, self-sustaining, and it has literally one purpose.
Just one, paying out the pensions of the 8 lakh bank retirees, most now in their 70s and 80s, who literally built the modern Indian banking system that we see today.
Exactly. The 8 lakh retirees built India's modern financial infrastructure on their watch. So for a grateful country, you'd think unlocking this vault for them would be, pretty simple, totally routine.
You really would think so. After all, it's their money, the one bank retirees set aside for their retirement and dignity in old age.
Yeah,
But instead of a key to the vault, these retirees found this insane labyrinth of legal contradictions, hurdles, misdirections, and institutional barriers to a fund that is rightfully their property.
totally on point.
So, today in our deep dive, we're looking at a pretty fiery circular from March 2026. It's from the All India Bank Pensioners and Retirees Confederation.
Right, the AIBPRC.
Exactly, and they're outlining this massive ongoing standoff over that exact $55 billion fund. They're actually claiming that top government officials are being systematically misled by the very people entrusted with the vault.
Quick, before we continue, thanks a lot for tuning in. Your support is what keeps this channel going, and we genuinely appreciate you watching.
As always, please make sure you subscribe and like the video so we can keep bringing you interesting information. If you haven't subscribed, do it now because what we broadcast on this channel, you won't find it anywhere else. Thank you.
Wow. Okay, let's unpack this because the immediate trigger here is it's a recent statement made in Parliament, right?
Yeah, that's the inciting incident here.
Right. So the Minister of State for Finance basically stood up in the Lok Sabha and declared that bank employees' pension regulations simply do not provide for the revision or updation of bank pensions.
That's a huge statement.
It's like, signing a contract with someone and then decades later, the other party suddenly claims a crucial clause you both agreed on just doesn't exist.
Exactly, and the union circular pushes back incredibly hard against that statement. They point directly to the Bank Employees Pension Regulations of 1995.
The BEPR.
Right, and specifically they highlight this really critical 2003 amendment to Regulation 35.
Oh, okay.
The union shows how this amendment changed the text to explicitly state that pensions, quote, shall be updated.
Shall, not will, but shall.
Exactly, changing it to shall makes that provision legally mandatory
Absolutely.
and perpetual.
So it's not just a suggestion, they created a binding legal mandate. Shall removes all the wiggle room.
It's complete. It's a legal obligation, full stop.
So if the ink has been dry since 2003, making this mandatory, it really begs the question of who actually has the power to just ignore it.
Well, that brings us to the Indian Banks Association, or the IBA.
Okay.
The union explicitly accuses the IBA of intentionally misguiding the government to block these payments.
But wait, here's where it gets really interesting. Is the government just, trying to save money? Because updating pensions for 8 lakh bank retirees is just too expensive?
See, that's the obvious assumption, right? But according to the document, no, it wouldn't cost the banks or the government a single extra rupee.
Really, nothing extra?
Not a paisa. Because the pensions are paid entirely from that self-sustaining corpus we mentioned earlier, the 4.57 lakh crores.
The giant vault.
Right? The money is literally sitting there. Which is why the union claims the IBA is basically throwing up bureaucratic smokescreens.
Like what?
Well, one tactic they allege is that the IBA cites totally irrelevant rules to confuse officials. Like they use Regulation 37 as a smokescreen.
Regulation 37, what's that?
That's a rule that only adjusts payouts for inflation. It's called dearness relief.
Oh, I see. So, by focusing on inflation adjustments, they entirely sidestep the actual rule for permanent pension increases, which is contained in a different regulation altogether.
Precisely, and it gets more disturbing.
What did you mean? How is that?
The circular also accuses the IBA of filing a false affidavit in the Supreme Court, claiming no updation provision even exists.
Wait, hold on. If they filed an affidavit in the Supreme Court, how do you avoid immediate legal blowback for doing something like that?
What's fascinating here is that the union's document details this huge structural loophole. The IBA allegedly defends its actions by claiming to be an, quote, unregistered body.
Unregistered?
Yeah. So they aren't subject to standard writ jurisdiction. They manage public bank policies and funds, but technically they aren't a formal entity.
That is incredible. It's like a homeowners association or HOA collecting massive dues to fix the roof, but when the roof caves in, they claim they aren't legally a registered company, so you can't sue them to release the funds.
That is a very accurate analogy. Retirees can't just take them to court the way they could sue a state department. The IBA is managing billions without the standard mechanisms for public accountability and intense scrutiny.
And we can't forget the human cost here. I mean, this isn't just red tape. We are talking about the very workforce that executed massive government initiatives. These retirees built the sprawling financial network for India's modern economy and world class financial system.
Yeah, things like demonetization and the Ayantma Atma Arjuna drive.
Exactly. The finance minister herself once praised them as warriors of the financial sector.
But the circular notes this really grim statistic. Over 2 lakh of these pensioners, so around 200,000 retirees, have passed away since 1992, just waiting for the full pension they believe they're legally owed. They died without getting justice or the financial security in retirement they so deserved.
That is heartbreaking. So what does this all mean for you, the listener? I mean, it serves as the stark reminder of the fragile intersection between bureaucratic power and the real world rights of citizens.
Yeah, it really does, and it leaves you with a pretty provocative thought to mull over. If an unregistered body can allegedly override documented regulations and influence top government uh, legal proceedings without direct accountability.
Right. How much of our everyday financial infrastructure is governed by similar unaccountable shadow entities?
On that note, we'll wrap up our broadcast for today. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share on Facebook and other social media. Until next time.